Hello, my name is Susan Jacobson, and I'm here today to talk about a project I did with Dr. Tiffany Troxler at Florida International University called Remediating Citizen Science in South Florida, What the Pandemic Taught Us. And our work has been documented, most of it, on our website called MISON, which is the Miami Environmental Science Action Network, and you can reach it at mison.miami. So I'm Susan Jacobson. I'm the co-PI. I'm also an associate professor in the Department of Journalism and Media at FIU. My colleague, Dr. Tiffany Troxler, is the primary investigator, and she's an associate professor and the director of science for the Sea Level Solutions Center. So this presentation is about a grant that we won from Miami-Dade County in 2019 to deliver some educational environmental workshops on the environment and sustainability to local citizen organizations face-to-face, and to engage them with a citizen science activity that incorporated a smartphone app. And wouldn't you know, the name of our project was actually Using Innovative Science and Technology to Create and Deliver Effective Environmental Education in Miami-Dade County. And our first workshops were scheduled for March 2020, and little did we know that our title would actually become quite relevant. So days before our first workshops were to be held, the US shut down. So all of our in-person citizen science projects that we had scheduled had to be canceled. And we had to come up with another format to satisfy the programming that we had promised to Miami-Dade County. So like everybody else in the US at that time, we quickly put together a format that we thought that we could deliver over Zoom. And ultimately we did deliver 28 webinars between April and November of 2020, where we reached more than 2,000 local residents and students, which was a greater number than we had promised to deliver in the face-to-face events. And each webinar included a citizen science activity, where attendees could use a web application to document their engagement with an environmental sustainability issue. We gave webinars on a wide variety of topics, including composting, recycling, and resource management, sea level rise, which is a very important topic here in Miami, extreme heat, climate health and equity, sustainable hospitality. FIU has one of the top hospitality schools in the United States, and urban forestry and clean energy. And our audiences were FIU students, some of them in classes and some of them who took part in class activities and student groups and student meetings. Also, we presented our webinars to several civic organizations. So the format we finally decided on spanned 1 hour, started with an introduction, and then we gave a quality of life survey over Zoom. And if you've ever used Zoom, you know how easy it is to do polling and surveys. Then we had a presentation by a topic expert. And some of our experts included people like Vivian Belzegai, who is an expert on sustainable hospitality, Rachel Silverstein of Miami Waterkeepers, Dave Dobler, a founder of volunteercleanup.org, Christine Rupp of Dade Heritage Trust, and many others. After the expert presentation, we had a quick survey, a little post test to see what the audience actually learned. So we actually gave them some questions related to the material. And then we had a demonstration of a citizen science activity and a web application that they could use at home. Then there was a panel discussion with Q&A from the audience and a satisfaction survey. So as part of our webinar, we asked the audience to take a little post test after the subject matter expert gave their presentation. And that was designed to see how much they learned from the presentation. And overall, audience members got 80%, 85% of the post-presentation questions correct. And most of the quizzes were 3 to 6 questions long. And so the range was from a high of 100% on a composting webinar to a low of 65% during a webinar on sea level rise. And it's not clear if it was the topic or the way that we worded the questions that caused the higher or lower scores, because some of the questions that people did not do as well on involved questions that had where you could choose more than one answer. So we need to look a little bit more carefully at that to see if we can determine what the real reason was. We also asked people to take a satisfaction survey at the end of the webinar. Not everybody responded to this. A large number of them, more than 90%, said that they enjoyed it. They gave us a high five, which is our highest number. We also asked some of our participants if they would participate in an upcoming citizen science event. And the responses here were also pretty good. About 65% of the people who attended our webinar said that they would do that. So we also asked our attendees if they would be willing to try to implement one of the activities that we went over in our webinar using a smartphone app. And we developed a series of little web apps to help them do that. And so their response was pretty high. About 67% said that they would, and 28% said that they would probably do the activity that we suggested, but that they wouldn't use a smartphone app. So built into each of our webinars, we had a little citizen science activity that they could do at home. And we built a web app that they could use their phone to document something in their neighborhood or something like their use of composting at home. And we hypothesized that people would be willing to participate in these activities during the pandemic. One of the first applications that we developed was the Meson Monitor, which was designed to let Miami-Dade citizens document their compost, recycling, and landfill resources from their homes. And the goal of this was to try to better understand how much compost, recycling, and landfill citizens in Miami-Dade County were generating and were disposing of. And so we had a phone-based application where we asked them to enter their location and the date and to take pictures of their composting and their recycling. And here's a couple of examples here of some photos that we received. We also asked them to measure and weigh their composting and recycling and landfill resources, and to tell us how they disposed of things like their composting, if they used it in their own garden or if they took it to a facility where they take compost. And we even made a little video showing people how they could measure and weigh their composting and recycling and landfill. Another application that we developed was the Meson Observer, where we literally invited people to go out into their neighborhood and take pictures and document some of the environmental phenomenon that they see there. And it could be something pleasant like a flower or a bird, or it could be a problem like a clogged drain or some trash or some dead animals, or it could be something neutral. They could also create their own category. And this evolved out of some more specific tools, where one time we were very interested in looking at clogged drains around Miami-Dade County, but this seemed like a more reasonable application. We successfully organized a socially distant citizen science event related to the king tides in Miami. So king tides are the days of the highest high tides of the year. And in Miami, these days are becoming more frequent. And what happens is the sea levels get so high that the water overtakes our drainage and sewer systems, and we see flooding in the street that's not caused by a water main break or by rain. So we've been doing this for a while, this event. And what we normally do is we bring a group of citizens together. We give them a little workshop on sea level rise and its potential impact for Miami. And then we give them kits that include a tape measure to measure water depth, a refractometer to measure salinity. We give them some bottles to collect water samples. We send them to specific areas around Miami-Dade County to document whether or not there is standing water. And they use the phone app to take pictures and to record their readings. So we did the same thing during the pandemic, except we had a socially distant event. So we allowed people to sign up to participate, and they could go out in teams made up of people in their bubble. So their very close friends or their family members. We had them stop by FIU at different times to pick up the kits, and we gave them all specific locations and times to go do their measurement and to record their measurements on the app. And then they return the kits to us. And this was very successful. We had over 70 people who participated in this during the pandemic. We held several webinars on heat and issues related to health and climate change. And we asked people if they wanted to participate in a citizen science event where they would place temperature sensors around Miami-Dade County. So during our webinars, we gave them the opportunity to sign up to participate in this event. And we were able to hold our first in-person event in May 2021, so over a year after we first went into lockdown. And we had about 50 people attend our Shading Date event where citizens came together for a workshop on the impact of heat, extreme heat, on everyday life, and to place small temperature sensors around Miami-Dade County. And the goal of this project is to place the sensors in areas where people live their daily lives. So bus stops, park benches, parking lots, places where sometimes it might be a lot hotter than would be reported in a TV weather forecast, for example. So it was very successful. We had about 50 people who showed up to place temperature sensors around Miami. So our hypothesis when we started giving these virtual webinars after the pandemic started was that citizens would welcome the opportunity to participate in an independent citizen science event during lockdown. Our hypothesis was partially supported. We found that students from captive audiences, like classes, they attended the Zoom webinars, but they only participated in the citizen science activities if it was required for class. So they only used the application to document something if they needed to do so to get a grade from their professor. Citizens from activist groups also attended the Zoom webinars, but they did not participate in the citizen science activities designed for them to complete independently on their own time. However, citizens and students both participated in citizen science events if their participation was designed to take place at a specific time and location, and they had some interaction with the organizers, and the event was socially distant, but they could work with friends or family members. So the Sea Level Solutions Day was a good example of that. They also were eager to sign up for in-person citizen science events that would take place when the pandemic rules were eased. So some of the lessons that we learned included that we could successfully organize citizen science events with a combination of virtual and in-person components. And going forward, we will probably incorporate some of the virtual components into our face-to-face events, such as producing videos to help explain to citizens how to use the applications to document environmental phenomena. The virtual format also allowed us to invite more experts and a greater range of experts than perhaps we would have been able to if we had held face-to-face events. If you've been to Miami, you know that the traffic is terrible, and so we probably got a few more experts to come participate in our webinars because they did not have to drive. The Zoom format makes it really easy to give polls and surveys. So it was easy for us to collect demographic and other information from our participants, which will help inform our projects going forward. One thing we definitely learned is that most people were not going to use the web apps to collect citizen science data on their own without an organizing event. So going forward, we're going to continue updating the website that we built to host this project and link all of our apps and our activities. We've been doing these projects for a few years, but we never had a central place to put all of our material, so now we do. We learned a lot from this project about creating simple web apps for citizen science because we created so many of them, and we're now developing some more specialized apps. So right now we're working on an app that will let people document what's called derelict vessels, which are boats or part of boats that are abandoned or sunken in the waters off of Miami. We're developing some more sophisticated applications using the data that we have collected from these citizen science projects, such as the sea level rise data and our heat data. And we've developed our mailing list of potential participants and subject matter experts for future endeavors. Thank you. Please feel free to email us if you have any questions.